may contain subject matter that some listeners may find disturbing or harmful. Audience discretion is advised. All right. Hello, darlings, dears, and fellow queers, and welcome back to CBT in the TV. As always, I am Kacie, not Rachel.
And I am Rachel, not Kacie.
And as you can see, if you're watching us in video, we have an extra special friend and guest with us today. It's the one and only Miss Molly Hopkins from one of our absolute favorite shows, Double Divas. For any of our friends listening who went to college with us, that was another show you got to hear us talk an awful lot about. Which makes sense because we also talked a lot about boobs.
Because I had to be educated in boob sweat.
Yes. And this show was a wonderful way to do that. So, Molly, thank you for joining us today.
Well, let me just start off with the whole boob sweat. I've seen a lot of memes. It's called humidity. I know all about it.
Yep, I do too.
But guess what can help you get rid of it? A great bra. Because when your breasts are lifted up and separated and they're not squished and smushed and a sweat, trap and a snack catcher, you can fix that with some thermally responsive fabric and a well-fitting bra. Okay, that's it. Let's fix it. It's okay.
So we know you from the wonderful world of Lifetime television and Double Divas, where we got to explore your wonderful lingerie store, LiviRae, which sounds a lot more like tawdry than it is because we have this idea of what lingerie stores are. But why don't you give our listeners who aren't familiar an idea of what you do at LiviRae?
So, LiviRae was founded in 2006 because of the necessity, really, right? The necessities, the bare necessities. And it's not so simple.
Exactly. The
And it's
necessities.
not so simple when you are limited in bra sizing. Coming from a country town in a small place where I was always nominated for flipping pageants and I could never find a strapless or a dress or a swimsuit, and all my friends were in the itty bitty titty committee, and we would go to spring break and I'm like, well, let me just be over here in my grandma's, old school bathing suit, one piece that I never wanted to show because I felt like I was an old woman. It was just this thing that was laid into my heart. God gave me the gift to give lift, and I went to school for music. But my grandma came to see me in a dream. She said, "You're going to have a bra store, get my sewing machine, you're going to go to fashion college, and you're going to do specialty swimwear." And LiviRae was born. At the time, I had a partner, and it was my best friend at the time on Double Divas, and her daughter was Rainey, and mine was Livy. But I knew very long ago that at some point that I would probably be steering the ship by myself, and so it just worked out. But LiviRae was born out of necessity, a need for women, no matter your size, no matter your race, no matter your shape, no matter your sexual preference, no matter your any of that. There was a safe space for you to go that was judgment free. And we always like to say we're like the cheers of bras. And I made it a personal mission to connect with women on a totally different level. Let Us Lift You Up was born, and the bra was the catalyst to get them here, but it was so much more than that because once the curtain closed, the secret spilled out. And having had sewing skills since I was like 4, I used to alter my own bras. There was just really no situation that I couldn't have a solvent for. And I didn't want a girl who maybe she was overweight, maybe she had eating stuff, maybe she was sad, maybe she wanted to feel sexy, but you just couldn't go into a mall store if you are wearing the largest bra that we carry, which is a 52O. So this is a true story, right? It happened, and she wanted to wear a schoolgirl outfit, but she couldn't find it. So I'm like, no problem. I got some tartan plaid. Let's make it happen, Captain. So I did. And that's what LiviRae's about. And, with an onslaught of a lot of, men and women who have had some gender identities and things of that nature, and with the, trans climate really growing, I wanted a safe space for those people as well, because at the end of the day, we're all human. And having been around so many different people from so many different walks of life, from so many countries and continents around the globe, I wanted this to be a place where people could just be free to be themselves and leave here lifted up.
That is truly lovely. And thank you for sharing some of the history with LiviRae with us, because that is, even for those of us who've watched the whole show, you get snippets here and there, but you never get to hear the whole story all the way through, because obviously they're going to edit it. So even if you'd sat in front of the camera in an interview and told them all that, they're going to cut it up and give us what they want to give us, which leads us to our first question. How were you approached for the show?
So there was a company, and we still carry it. It's called Vabian. They make bridal foundations and shapewear. And the young man who was in the industry, his parents started the company in Puerto Rico, and his name is Greg. He had met us and he was super cool. And he came in all suited up, looking like Dr. McDreamy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, who is this man? And then when he told us, because he had a background in banking, but now he's taken over the company of the family. And so we met him. But, you know, our store was in an old Pike's nursery and there was just stuff everywhere. And I'm like, oh my God, who is this man in this Armani suit? Like, and we had drawn pictures on our back wall of what every employee's breasts look like on a sheetrocked, unpainted wall in Sharpie, and nicknamed everyone. And so when he walks in our office and he sees this, I'm mortified. Like, oh my God, I cannot believe that we've got to get it together. But at the end of the day, that was truly who we were and who we are. So he said, we have a friend. I have a friend in New York that owns Vitamin Enriched Casting. And there is a production company that is looking to do a story about a lingerie show. And he said, I immediately thought about y'all. And he said, so you need to reach out, see what you need to do for the casting. And I'm like, okay. Well, I'd just gotten a Sony like handy cam for Christmas. And when I called her, she's like, well, the good news is the deadline isn't over. The bad news is you have 3 days to submit your entry. So I'm trying to figure out what we're going to do. I'm instantly being a writer and an editor and a producer and the filmer, none of which I'd ever done, and to get something to send these people. So I use my camera, I make a video, and then I can't get it uploaded. The files are too large. Again, sewing machine, music instruments, great, but computers and technology, terrible. So I couldn't upload the file. And at that time, Facebook was really starting to trend and pop off. And I knew that I could sit in front of my laptop and hit the video and record a video on Facebook. Um, so we were sitting on the floor, we were looking into the camera, and we just started talking. And then at the end of it, Cynthia looks at me and she says, okay, okay, did it load? And I'm like, I don't know. She says, well, if you don't know and I don't know, we're screwed because you're the smart one. And I'm like, well, I don't know if it did, but it looks like it's still recording. So let's round the corner. And at that time, our house mom, we called her Mama. Her name was Anita. She was our seamstress. And she was the super gruff older lady, which she was on Double Divas, but she had a heart of gold and she could do anything. And she packed a pistol, honey. She was not going to let anybody come in there and rob us or do anything to us. And so when I round the corner with the camera, she looked straight at me and she's like, get that dad blame thing out my face. And I'm like, uh-oh. So we try to close it out. It uploads. We email it. And that is what they got. Us sitting there talking about, I don't know. If you don't know, you're the smart one. It was nothing to do with bra fitting. It was nothing to do with lingerie. It was the Lucy and Ethel of bras and banter. And they loved us. So out of 300 entries, they got down to three. One was in Cali, and they wanted a little more diversity in terms of not a particular body type. because it was going on Lifetime and they wanted to get new viewers. So I think they pitched lingerie because they thought they could get the men, and they wanted older people, younger people. So they were trying to garner new viewers. And they said, well, this is what happens. A, you're at a massive disadvantage because these two other stores have professional entries and your video is not going to work. So they said, but you're in luck. Our production company produces Say Yes to the Dress, and we have people in Atlanta in the field. So we're going to send them over and we're going to create what's called the sizzle. And we're going to put the sizzle together and we're going to send it over. And so they chose us. We got the call and they said, we're going to do the sizzle. And then what happens after that is it goes before a group of 100 people in like 4 main cities, and these people go in and they go into like a theater setting and they watch the initial pilot. So our pilot show, which is the one where we went to the church, went to a viewer group, and we hadn't heard anything. And I knew one day because I got an email, and the man said, this older man said, I just watched your pilot. He said, I laughed, I was mad, and I cried. And he said, so I say all this to say, I don't know what's going to happen, but I wish you nothing but success. And then we were off to the races, and we had absolutely no idea that the impact of television has on your business. So when I tell you we were not prepared for the onslaught of people, we had no freaking clue what was going to happen.
One of the things that Rachel and I were talking about is we were interested to know how you got approached for the show. And it's interesting to hear that it ended up being a bit more like how Dance Moms got its start, which is people were looking for a show about the topic already, versus we were interested to hear if you might have gotten approached for the show because you guys were based out of Georgia, because your show started around the same time as several shows across several of Disney's networks that ended up being based out of Georgia, including another show on Lifetime that Rachel and I also enjoyed called Kim of Queens. And so we were just wondering if there had also been a
too.
Yeah, so we were like, I wonder, because there was a big, like, even movies were being filmed in Georgia at the time. What to Expect When You're Expecting was filmed there. Like, quite a few. There was like a big tax incentive to film in Georgia at the time. So we were just like, I wonder if it was because they were in Georgia or what. So it's always interesting to hear. The other thing I think that probably benefited for you is, while during casting you might not have looked as shiny as the people who had the professional reel, for me, and I think for Rachel, one of the first things that stood out to us when we were watching the pilot initially when we were back in college was the moment that you and Cynthia are getting ready to go to the church, and you're talking about what size bras you're going to need, and you're looking at the pictures and you go, we might need one of these, and you hold up one of the really, really larger brassieres, and your store clerk goes, really? And both in unison, you look at her and you go, yes, baby. I grew up with my grandparents are Southern, and we had a really big, close, extended family. So both all of my great aunts and great uncles are Southern on both sides. And as soon as you turned and like deadpan went, yes, baby, I was like, oh, I'm home. I'm gonna watch this forever. So I feel like your guys' video not having been as polished, and the two of you going back and forth and being the Lucy and Ethel of couture lingerie, and being there to support women and not just all of those with breasticles, not just women, but I think that actually probably ended up helping you in the long run, because people want to see themselves represented. They don't necessarily just want to see flash.
And the thing too is like they knew that we were comfortable with underdressers, cross dressers, trans clients, large women, small women, women with no breast, nursing moms, brides, like you name it, I've helped them. And so for me, like I said, when we, first talked to each other about doing this podcast, it's like the mission has not changed. I have not aborted mission. I've done some reality TV since that may have gotten me a little sidetracked, but again, I'm super grateful for all this opportunity because it allows me to have a platform to bring people into the fold of LiviRae and Molly on a Mission. And it's not changing. I'm not going to ever stop until I just can't do it anymore.
You were talking about, like, you got involved in specifically the church thing, and during the brief break where you left and then came back, I was like, it'd be interesting to hear about how, like, some of the special guests kind of came to be, like, if they were kind of already scheduled to come visit you, and then production was like, oh yeah, or if production maybe set some of those up, like with Norma. We saw Norma, you introduced her to the show.
All right. Well, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you how that happened. So back to the church. So my dad, growing up in the South, and I grew up in the church, and I did musicals in the church, and I come from a very, very pretty staunch First Baptist church, sitting on the front row background. And I get a message from my dad because he knows we're about to film, and I'm trying to think of narratives, even though I know that I have clients that would be story worthy because maybe they had a special circumstance or maybe they had something that they felt like they were the only one who had it, but they immediately felt better when I said, "You're not the first person that I've seen this on." I get a text message from my dad, and he says, I was watching Strange Sex. And he said, and there's this woman on there who is the Guinness World Record for having the largest boobs in the world, and she's talking about needing a bra. You should reach out. Well, immediately following that was my oldest daughter's aunt who lived in California, and she's like, "Girl, I saw this woman on Strange Sex." So the two family members saw, and I'm like, "What the hell is my dad doing watching Strange Sex? Was that before or after Bible study on Wednesday nights?" And
These are the kinds of questions Rachel and I ask often.
I wouldn't have
We
given a
we grew up
damn.
church kids ourselves.
Except he's a very judgmental man, and I'm like, "Oh, is this the
Aren't they
pot
always
calling the kettle?"
same
Like,
color?
so anyway, I go online and I get on there and I start looking up, and I think I googled this woman who her name was Norma Stitz, but her real name is Anita. Um, and I find her, and I think I found an email. So immediately it was like Mission Possible, right? Instead of impossible. And it was kind of like the dun 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 dun. Like, what are we doing? Okay, let's wait. We're gonna sit and wait and see. So once I started kind of creating some of these story narratives based on real life things that were happening in a daily, we sat around and did round robin. So another thing that I was not aware of, I should have gotten production credits because I'm a storyteller, I'm a writer, I do music, and I was coming up with these insane ideas that worked, for the narrative of what they wanted to tell. So we would get this idea and then we would try this insane thing, which that was insane because that bra for her was crafted from a video visual. We never ever saw that woman. We made the
You
bra.
never sized her in
We
person.
sized her over video chat. We draped the bra. We had to recreate a bra because the largest bra that we carry was smaller than she needed. But when
Yeah.
she got here and we met her and we put it on, that was real. It fit right off the rip. So our insane ability to make these things and do what we do was just really proven in that moment. No one knows it, that part, right? They don't know that it literally was a phone call, a video chat. We created it, then they brought her here because we were
And that's what it made
panicked.
such a good episode.
Because we were panicked. Our panic was, what if she gets here and it doesn't fit? But we got to film. We can't just craft something that fast in an overnight period, right? So, but it worked.
That would have had so much tension.
But it worked. And uh Abby Lee, Dance Moms. So what happened was they started asking like very interpersonal upbringing and childhood stories and things like that. And they were like, what are some of the things that bother you, or what are some of the things that you would like to see happen? And I'm like, well, uh, my parents got divorced when I was 5, and my dad got custody of us, but it was me and my brother, and I always felt left out. I always felt like if I had a ball game, no one was there because my brother's stuff took priority. And I was older, even down to I got to drive the car only if I picked him up. So I just wanted him to be a part of something. But I also really loved dance. And growing up in a Southern Baptist thing, we weren't allowed to dance. That horse dance. My mother was a dancer, not a stripper, a dancer. She taught tap and jazz for extra money, and I always wanted to dance, but I was always told, "Oh, you're too big. And if you dance, your breasts are going to go everywhere. And that's going to be a distraction. And that's going to be like you're exposing yourself or putting yourself out there." And so I always was told, "You're too big. You're too busty." So my cousin had called me and said, "We're doing a charity event, and it's called Dancing for the Children." And I love doing charity work. I love volunteering. I've always done that. And these children are underserved, and I have a sweet spot in my heart because I knew how it felt to be raised on a farm in a single wide trailer with very little money and no new clothes. So I wanted to volunteer my time. They asked me to dance. It was going to be like Dancing for the Stars. And I said, okay. They duped that story, and they did the dance thing. So then they got into, "Have you ever had formal training?" And I'm like, "No, but I can dance. I mean, I can stay on rhythm. If I have somebody that's my partner that teach me the steps, I can do this." Because Abby Lee was also on Lifetime, and she, they knew they wanted the stakes. And so they brought her in. And I'll tell you, I had no idea how that was going to impact me mentally, because here I am thinking, "Oh my God, it's my time to shine. I'm going to get to learn a routine. I'm going to do amazing." And then they brought her in to the studio. I had no idea this woman was about to walk in there. And so immediately, because she's already done reality TV and she's a battle axe.
Wait,
Well, she doesn't need a setup. She lives to tear people down. She said it.
wait, so you didn't know that she was
No.
coming in
No.
until she walked in?
No.
They didn't okay it with her.
All I knew is I was going to a ballroom studio to start taking lessons with my dancer. And they wanted me to do the mambo. And so then I went into designing the dress with Cynthia. And then it was all of a sudden we hear her on the other side of the hall.
So all of your reactions, that was real.
Oh,
They
it was
didn't.
so real.
You had no idea. Oh my
And
God,
that woman made me
that's
cry.
nasty.
She made me
Of
cry.
course she did.
She did make me cry. And she was like, "Oh, you do a kick like you were in the marching band." And I'm like, "I was for 4 years." You know what I mean? Like at that point, I felt like she was really being cutthroat. And I'm like, "Is this really how this is going down?" So that really happened. And I cried because I'm like, now I'm feeling insecure. And I'm just here trying to learn a routine to raise money for the poor children. I'm
Oh my
not
gosh,
making a
I
career
mean,
out of this.
it looked, as a viewer, like it looked so staged. It looked like it was absolutely like full on set up and scripted.
No.
But hearing that it wasn't now, I'm like, oh my gosh.
The whole thing was, okay, well, she's going to do this. Well, now they were like, she needs a bra. 'Cause apparently at the time she had a younger man. So when she came in there, she was like, and she was about to cry because she was hated herself and she did not want to take her shirt off. And we put her in a bra and she loved it. For such a dominant woman, now as the tables are turned. Now let's see what let's talk something. But I would have never, ever. I tried to make her feel good. I didn't want her to feel bad about herself. Like, let me lift you up, right? Let me help you with your bra. So it was quite the thing. But when I saw myself and the dance went by so fast, I think it was 60 seconds of some fiery mambo. But in true spirit of my dad, he didn't show up. And that was not them telling him not to come. He didn't come. And it's like, I really wanted therapy from that because I don't want to hate my dad, but I also want to be able to effectively communicate and tell you what I need from you. And this is all I'm asking. All I wanted to hear was, well done, my child. But that was real. Um, the rodeo was real. Her horse was blind. She was a big girl. That was real. And them wanting me to test it out. That was real.
Another question I always wondered about, because Lauren, she just seems like such a character, but then y'all seem like such characters. She actually worked for you. She wasn't
No,
a plant.
she actually worked
Yeah.
for us. So when we first opened, I was going to anywhere and everywhere I could uh, to do a fashion show, or let us host a fashion show at your bar, or let's do this. So Lauren was a singer, and she was in a band, and they were called the Co-eds. And so Lauren was wildly talented, beautiful, hot on the Atlanta scene. She knew anybody and everybody that was doing stuff here, and I used her as a swim model. And she really did wear two different colored shoes, and she really was this living out loud, colorful, crazy girl. And I think that for her, it was an opportunity to have some exposure for what she truly wanted to do. So she had to learn how to bra fit, and she was really good at it. So when they came, they're like, "Do you have anybody in your wheelhouse that would be y'all's protege, your do girl, your young, hot, maybe there's a little jealousy because y'all wish you looked like her type stuff." So it was not um a plot, or like the plug in, but it definitely was. They knew what they needed to do to build, and they wanted a younger audience. But she's fantastic. We're still friends. She lives around the corner from me, and she will do a pop in here and there. But I will say one thing that we didn't like, and then I was reminded of it because they put Double Divas on Hulu. A lady sent me a message and was like, "If your store's still open, that was awful. That young girl talking about somebody saying, ooh." And when that happened,
Really?
we called them and we said, "You can't do that." We didn't know that happened, but that she never said that. And she cried for days because she is such a kind
Oh,
soul, and she's like, "I can't believe they would cut this." And we said, "Us either." And I said, "Don't ever do that again, because we have a very good business and we have worked our asses off for people to come here and know that I would never hire anybody that judges people like that." And so we were heartbroken because she felt bad. We felt bad because we wanted to correct and right the wrong. But I literally just got an email that said, "I can't believe you would allow
mhm.
someone to work there." So that tells me right there what reality TV, what media does to the minds of people who don't understand how this works.
So that leads me to like my next question, and like what were some of the things that were shown that might not have actually been what happened?
Can't think of anything right off the rip that wasn't. I'll tell you, having done that show and then doing 90 Day, the editing on 90 Day when it first started was great, but they do a lot more BS. They do a lot of stuff that really
Yeah,
makes it look, it's not staged, but it's what they cut out that
it's
makes you look
edited.
awful. They don't show everything, and it is so heavily edited, but that wasn't really the case with Double Divas. It was very well thought out, executed. There's like a problem. This is what we want to do to fix it. Does it work? Fluttered in with other stuff.
Um, and also with Double Divas just coming out on Hulu, I know when we talked earlier, you said you'd let your youngest watch Double Divas because she was too young back when it was filming to remember most of it. Um, would you say that like being on especially multiple reality shows and seeing the different ways that they can be shot and then edited, would you say that that changed your opinion on how you expose the children in your life to reality TV?
No, I absolutely. Now I have some blinders and some things on, and she's got a couple of social accounts, but they're private, and I have to approve who she's talking to. I check her phone, I check her tablet, I check her things, and if I feel like it's not good. Now, she's a kid, she's 14. She's going to watch some things. I don't know how to set up all the blocks. But what I do is I talk to her open, and that's the difference in when I was growing up. We didn't have talk about it Tuesday. We had brush it under the rug and no, you don't need a hug. And in my house, we're talking about it. How do you feel? Do you understand what's happening? I'm very honest.
What do you think about reality shows that center around children?
That's a tough one because I tried to not let my little one in because she was too young, but I also didn't protect Olivia. And she was thrown into something because she was my daughter at 15, 16 that she didn't, 14, 13. I don't even remember. It was 2010. She's 25. So 10, 11. She didn't want to do it because there's certain things that maybe she didn't want to do that I made her do. And now she's like, I wish you hadn't made me do that. Or she missed doing something that was truly child driven at a party with other kids or going skating. And I'm like, no, you have to film. You know what I mean?
What is something that you would, whether it's advise or caution or encourage to someone who says, like, I would want to be on reality TV? Like, what conversation would you have with them?
Does it truly align with your values at your core? Or is it that you just want to be on TV, right? Because Double Divas aligned with my core values in a very major way. Um, and I didn't realize that the scope of 90 Day Fiancé was going to change. Because when it first came out, I didn't even watch that show. I didn't know anything about it. I had just been seeing someone that lived in another country for almost 3 years. So, and we were going through the K1 process. So it made sense. And because of our age difference, it made sense for them to cast me. But I was not a girl that set out to do reality TV. And I really did not want to do it. I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. But I also knew I could leverage it for my business. So that was another thought, you know. But he really was legit. That wasn't me just trying to be on the show. And see, if you're just going on a reality show to be on a reality show, then you're not doing what you should do for it to benefit you and your family because the money's not that great. You have no control typically over the narrative. You may be a part of the story, but you don't know how they're going to cut it. And it can be very bad or it can be very good. You got to have a thick skin because the internet warriors that are keyboard bulliest are awful. And I would say you need to have a business. You need to have something that when these people come to you, they can see like something that when they come there, you can capitalize on the people coming to see what the hell you got going on. This, bye, bra. That's what I got going on. Work. Let me help you. And you need to have a lawyer and you need to have somebody read a contract because there might be a couple little thin, fine lines that say, oh, well, we're going to use you for pillow talk and you're going to shoot every episode and you're the goat. But we're not going to let you wear your own pajamas that you sell or use a cup that has your logo on it. And I would never do another show if I'm not the executive producer with credits and content that I can add to my IDMB. So, or whatever it is I'm doing, that I have this background, this resume.
How do you feel like being a reality TV star has impacted your mental health overall?
I'm a pretty humble person, but when I used to be a yes girl and say yes to everything and do and go, everybody wants to be your friend or love you when it glorifies them and they stand something to gain. But when you put your foot down and you start hanging out with people that they're only there for what they can get to and there's not reciprocity or honest exchange, I started saying no. I started putting my foot down and I started not doing certain things. But because I had been this yes girl and so kind and so giving and over giving of myself for so long, now all of a sudden they say, oh, she's arrogant. She's not humble. She's got an ego. I'm going to earn self respect. And this is for myself. And I have to say no. And the power of no is so very liberating. For the first time in my life, I have boundaries. Real solid, unpenetratable boundaries. And I know what I can and will not do because I've already done all the things that didn't work.
How long do you feel like it took you to like get to that point? Like, do you feel like when you were on Double Divas, when you were on 90 Day, like do you feel like the boundaries were there, were developing, or do you feel like it took the journey of healing afterward to get to that point?
I'm just now getting there.
Another question we had, I think that kind of relates to that, was how you feel like reality TV ended up impacting your real life relationships.
Horrible.
Hmm.
Horrible. Because if you don't trust yourself and love yourself and respect yourself, and you don't have that trust, because this is the thing, we all have to trust each other until that trust is broken. The rumor mill out here it's crazy.
Yeah. It sounds
It's
like
not healthy.
reality TV didn't just affect like your interpersonal relationships with people that you were close with, but like your relationship with humanity in general, because people had access to you over the internet and people liked to leave reviews for your store, so it kind of changed some of your perception of how the world works.
Oh, absolutely. And we used to laugh, but it's not funny. But it's also entertainment, right? So it depends on what side of the fence you're on. Do you watch it because you think it's freaking crazy and you cannot believe this is really on TV and it makes your crazy not look so crazy? Or do you have a heart and it was fun and it was entertaining and you got a good laugh, right? But you can't take it to heart and you can't take it to head.
Well, this has been a much more enlightening conversation in ways that, like, Rachel and I fully expected to hear a lot of enlightening things today, but not the things we heard. A lot of the things we heard that were the most enlightening to us were things we never anticipated talking about with you today. And our lives have definitely been forever changed, and we absolutely cannot thank you enough. We definitely want to close out this interview with one final question, and that would be, what was your original guilty pleasure reality show?
The Real World. I would say The Real World.
Oh, I resonate with that. MTV was the OG goat.
Because it was music and it was fashion and it was cities and it was, places I've never been, because I had never been to New York. I'd never been to LA. I'd never been to all these dope spots, and I loved fashion and I love things. So I would have to say The Real World.
All right, thank you for joining us, and as always, I have been Kacie, not Rachel.
And I have been Rachel and not Kacie.
All right, bye. Hi, CBT and the TV friends. We are so excited you were able to join us for our very first interview episode. And as an extra special treat, our friends over at LiviRae Lingerie have given us a promo code to share with all of you. Use code NEWBRA25, that's NEWBRA25, when booking your in-person or online fitting for bras, swim, whatever you feel you need. And make sure to mention that your friends over at CBT in the TV, that's Kacie, not Rachel, and Rachel, not Kacie, sent you, and get yourself something fun or something for someone special in your life. Yay!
CBT in the TV is hosted by Rachel Sprague and Kacie Campbell. Our show is produced by Rachel Sprague, Kacie Campbell, and Yakov Paley. Editing by Yakov Paley. Our theme song was written, composed, and performed by Emily McNally. Please join us on Instagram and TikTok at CBT in the TV for even more fun and access to the resources mentioned in today's episode. Thanks for joining us.